So welcome to everybody to 10x your prospecting during these very uncertain times. We all hope that you are staying safe and your families well. Certainly we've seen so many new companies looking at commission-only sales as a strategy. And so to all of the agents on this call, I think that you should take that as a really strong and positive sign for the future. I think people are looking, I think we've all had our lives a little bit disrupted, a lot of it disrupted, but we've all sort of pivoted to things like online training more and Zoom. And I think tools like you're going to learn about today and strategies are going to really be so beneficial to helping you do some really great prospecting over the next few months. So I'm going to hand over, sorry, I should have introduced myself. I'm Laura, the CEO and one of the co-founders at CommissionCrowd. And I'm going to pass it over to Nick. Do you want to go first and introduce yourself, and then Morgan?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much, Laura, for the introduction. I'm actually just moving here. A few people's like, I can't see you. So let me just move to something a little bit better live on the fly. So yeah, thanks very much for the introduction. It's a real pleasure to be, with Laura here and to present some of the key things in these kind of times. And for background for myself, I'm the founder and CEO of GrowthLead and a few other software as a service platforms on the web. And I've been in the both sales background, but as well as from a technical background combined over the last sort of 5 to 7 years. And I've been in the nitty gritty of prospecting and sales and, enterprise level accounts and so forth. So that's pretty much me. And I'm actually based out of the UK in Oxford, for those that wondering from my accent and where I'm based. And so, yeah, that's pretty much it from my end.
Awesome. Yeah, my name is Morgan Williams. I'm a full-time enterprise sales rep for a tech company. I'm based in our Chicago, Illinois office. So I'm here in Chicago in the US. I'm also the host of the B2B Sales Tech podcast. I've had the pleasure of interviewing Laura before. And I've been a sales professional ever since, my whole life, but ever since graduating college. So for the past 9 or so years. And my focus has been 100% on building a book of business from scratch. Every role I've been in and new business generated through cold outreach. So I'd love to talk about some strategies and principles that I bring in my daily life.
Awesome. So Nick, when you're ready, we'll get going.
Alrighty. So, I mean, it's, you're probably wondering, obviously, as we all have, some are going through lockdown still, some are naturally going beyond it. Things are starting slowly to get out of lockdown, especially in Europe. Of course, I know US is. So everyone's in different stages here, regardless. And I think that's why Laura put it uncertain times, as we've done many of these specific webinars on lockdowns. And I think now it is about what is the change in environment. And I really wanted to, team up with CommissionCrowd guys, because I know there's a lot of both companies and sales professionals out there that need new ways, new tactics, new strategies, and also just general insights about what they can do about prospecting, especially about generating new pipeline and keeping that lead flow, especially in times of turbulence. So quickly showing you, I think you can all see my screen, by the way, I presume based on, I think Jay was a kindly mention that I'm still presenting. So, so if anyone else, by the way, they can't see my screen, just let me know on the chat. So in short, the agenda, I think, of the call, and this is with combination with, of course, Morgan, is to share some insights about all, what are the impactful industries and what are the least impactful industries that you obviously over time realize that you can pivot towards, or maybe you can expand more into. And in short, obviously GrowthLead is a LinkedIn automation platform, but also I want to touch on specifics on the effectiveness of 21st century social selling. Especially we approach the dynamics of how business is conducted and how things move forward. And of course, I believe Morgan will discuss a lot more on copy that works and best practice, because we know, 50% of the work is tools. The other 50% is really around the copy. So it's great to have him on here. And of course, we have the specific LinkedIn hacks, tools, tips, and best practices, because that equally, you've got to find alternative strategies in order to get in front of the prospects or the, new potential deals. And secondly, really around tips on prospecting safety and limitations. We've all done cold calling, we've all done cold emailing, and also about how to stay secure if you're going to do any form of automation on even LinkedIn and beyond. And of course, I'm not just coming here just to provide insights, and really providing a really key offer on our tool stack that we have and other opportunities. If you guys stay near towards the end, I don't want to keep too long here, but provide a bonus offer for you guys as well. And I believe, questions, Q&A towards the end with Laura, myself, and Morgan of anything related. So we're happy we're going to be here towards the end of the webinar. Without further ado, I'll begin quickly going over just the basic economics, right? Because I'm very data driven. I've been involved in a lot of specifics with different industry analysis or different strategy, what copy. You use all that data in order to hone specific changes, right? And of course, you realize that this is the state that we're in across, whether it's the Eurozone or whether you're across the US or China. You see the specific projected, by the way, this is data from McKinsey & Co. You can see that, what's going to happen to the trend lines over the period of time and with the decline itself, and what to expect and how you can be ready for that change and that normality. But at the same time, what can you do right now to see that? And it's quite clear that, naturally, the habits of consumers and purchasers, decision makers has altered in different ways, because they still have a workforce in place, but that's gone remote. That's, different investments have shifted across, whether from sales to marketing or vice versa, or even different departments are adjusting to specific tool stacks, perhaps, that they use on different services they're really pivoting towards and removing. So these kind of things really become pivotal. So you'll see that naturally a lot of them are, takes up two more times to recover lost market share. And of course, these are kind of the other general statistics in market capitalizations across different sectors. And it's quite evident, you see, you can use this quite, from hindsight, you can see that naturally different industries have thrived, others have suffered. But you'll notice that even at the same time, like any crisis, or there's always opportunities and always things that have come from it that you can leverage in the time that we're in. And of course, it's commercial airspace or oil and gas, air travel, and insurance and banks and so forth have had the largest decline, but that could be a variety of different reasons. And then, of course, you've got the other side of the world where you've got pharmaceuticals, high tech, business services, software, and that so forth. So what does that mean, though? What are the most impactful ones by percentages that we've identified? And whilst my team went out to research to gather some data, and of course, take this as a pinch of salt. I'm sure there's data trends all that says, give or take a specific percentage. But it's quite natural that these are the ones that have had the biggest drop. So now, but what really matters here, without kind of, profonticating for too long, is what are the industries that have seen the most growth? And this is based on, WeForum, the National and SEMrush data, which is, online analytical tool. It's quite evident in the rise of Zoom, the rise of the workforce and the remote work, that this is a huge increase in web applications, right? Whatever it is, in different spheres, in different niches, they're looking to collaborate better. They're looking to, find better ways to streamline or even reduce costs by software. There's so many examples that you'll find. Someone says, "Can not hear the presenter." Can you guys hear me, by the way? Just checking. I think it was Laura that mentions 100%. Wonderful. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Awesome. Okay. And this is what we've seen. So medical technology, pharmaceutical companies have had a huge fight. Do you know why? Simply because of the amount of investment and funds that have gone into the specifics. So, of course, then you have the consumer goods or food delivery, consumer services, Amazon, even other e-commerce platforms. Also, payment systems, new ways that people are going online, collaboration tools. So these, in short, is digital businesses that are selling to other digital-based businesses. Obviously, retail has suffered tremendously, and even a lot of platforms are still going online. So this is just a real tip for you guys. Anybody that's selling different solutions, different services. I'll give you an example. One of my friends was actually made redundant. So, a few friends actually, even in London, and he was a wholesaler for a drinks company, and they had a huge redundancy based on that, and he wanted to know how to sell software. He wanted to transition his sales skills, because it's a very different, let's say, industry that he pivoted towards. And now he's working for a few, selling directly for a few SaaS companies, and has seen some, great. He managed to pivot, and he's seeing some, a bright future based on that. Because obviously it's not looking just short term. There's a long term angle to where his, account management and sales skills become into fruition, as an example. So kind of moving briefly forward, and obviously you have different business services, operations are continuing, prioritizations are adjusted. Now, a lot of this is quite obvious, but I think, even for a lot of the companies, operations are continuing to a large extent, right? People working from home, offices have been closed. Actually, I had even other companies that are in London are completely shutting their offices and having a pretty much remote-centric organization moving forward. So that still poses not only a short-term, but also a long-term behavioral change that matters about what kind of systems and what kind of services we offer, and how does that impact our buying cycle as well. And naturally, it's a shift of prioritization in terms of budget. A lot of companies, you find that, if they're, they had a huge bucket of cash for content marketing, PR, and X, Y, and Z, their whole strategy is shifted towards what actually brings the value, a quick return on investment, but still keeping budgets, but to ones that really matter, that bring in the leads, that bring in the intent of, purchase intent, for example. So that's one thing that I've found is a lot more people are focusing on outbound, simply for this reason, because it's a lot lower cost of acquisition. Tools like LinkedIn or cold emailing has been a great way to get hold of people. At low cost, right? Not to miss that part. So kind of moving on is really looking at something, because today's session is about prospecting. It is about social selling. It is about unconventional ways for you to create new business without really breaking the bank or using expensive tools and wasting a lot of energy, really. But what's the one statistics that really surprises me, or well, it doesn't surprise me, I suppose. What is great to know is LinkedIn itself has seen a 55% surge in user and activity in the past weeks, actually probably in the last month, in short. More people are out there, they're viewing content, they're active, they're available, and I know it's not the first time that people are using LinkedIn as a way to prospect. But you'll have effectively the powerful thing about LinkedIn, of course, not only your personal profile, but the fact that you are going to be directly having a conversation with them in real time. Skipping the formality of email that takes 2 weeks just to get 1 or 2 questions out of the way, right? The powerful thing is you're in real-time conversation with somebody to be able to get to the value proposition that you want to communicate. So, and of course, you'll find that this is a very statistics that I thought, hey, why not? In short, you see the different industries that have had the most updates that are pushing forward with the impact of COVID. And you'll see that obviously a lot of B2B, information, internet businesses, financial services, agencies, and in fact, hospitals and healthcares that are pushing a lot of this insights around COVID, where they see some form of synergies, or you can make as you will with that data, but that's what I got from it. So now you're probably wondering, what is GrowthLead? And just to introduce about myself, and I didn't want to go towards it. We're a cloud-based LinkedIn automation platform for secure and safest, or safe in this case, reliable prospecting. We empower organizations, individuals, a lot of different companies to be able to leverage their own LinkedIn profile to outreach at scale, but in a personalized way that complies with LinkedIn. So, and we do that at extremely low cost compared to any other mediums. Now, why would you even want to look into that? You know, I'll give you an example. The kind of prospecting that we talk about is really comes down to a numbers game, right? Of course, nobody's here that wants to spam people. They want to be able to target the right people, you know, that will see value from your solution, and you make a conversation out of it. But unfortunately, you have to do it to a scale enough to be able to really see the fruition from the results. So here's an example that typically you can send, you know, you can get involved and send up to 2,000 invites. This is like kind of the general statistics that we've seen, right? And you typically have around 70 to 100 prospects that you can outreach per day, give or take. Out of that, we typically have around 40% acceptance rate. That's 600 prospects that you could have in your new network that you've mentioned that you're going to look to start a conversation with. Out of those, we see an average, actually much more, that's pessimistically at 5%, right? Out of those, which is a lot less, actually an average from 5% to around 15%, I've seen on average of response rates that you'll have. So you'll easily have at least 45 engaged prospects, or in this case, leads, qualified leads, because you've targeted them specifically per month on your own LinkedIn profile. And I'm going to talk about a little hack here. I've been involved in you know, obviously in the past with cold emailing and cold calling, and you realize the different challenges that they all pose in different ways. Cold calling, the energy, obviously, I wouldn't say it's obsolete, but it's become saturated. It's become, especially in Europe at least, it's become a lot of nuisance to be able to hit those numbers at as much as you like. Then you have cold emailing. We still use it ourselves, and but it has become less effective over time because a lot of people have an overwhelming large inbox with lots of emails. You're competing for interest, for attention. And that's why LinkedIn has become a powerhouse, because somebody can see your profile, right? They understand who you are. So inmails is another way, the closest thing to a cold email that I'm going to show at the end of the webinar, a huge hack that you can actually scale the emails beyond what you've given. So why LinkedIn for prospecting and social selling? It's simply, naturally, the data is there, right? It's the most up-to-date data that you can find anywhere, right? Simply because the users update. It's user-generated content. It's user-generated updates. So 660 million users on LinkedIn. Naturally, the second one is protect your brand. I mentioned cold emailing. It's not a good perceivedness of your brand, but also like cold emailing. You have to, do you know how much damage it can cause to your domain, and for all your future emails to go to spam? It's a nightmare. I'd love to keep doing it, but it's such a big risk. And especially if you've created a reputable brand over the years, even if you're speaking to your clients, they go to spam. Do you know how many opportunities you lose because of that? So this becomes even more important, the fact that you can be on LinkedIn and actually communicate to prospects in a more transparent way, right? They see your face, they understand who you are, they see your history, if you have some authority, you have some great, so it is a much better way to be able to connect with somebody in the B2B world. Of course, I don't want to say things that probably already knew, but in short, that's it. And of course, 90% of C-suites or executives, you'll find that they are less reluctant to be able to reply to somebody off the bat from a cold email. So if you're more likely, chances that they are on LinkedIn, they're active, and they're more likely to be able to be in a social capacity to connect with you. And just moving on swiftly, and most importantly, if those guys that are in Europe or even in Canada, where laws are much more stringent, it's about being GDPR compliant prospecting. Why? Because you are consentfully requesting to connect with somebody. They either accept or decline. right? It's not like an email where it's forcefully sent your way, right? So you have, it's very conceptual. And of course, the whole platform was built on business. So why wouldn't you want to leverage this platform a lot more to be able to nurture people? I saw a few questions, by the way. I'll definitely, keep a note of those. I'm sure with Laura, we can answer those questions as we move forward. So moving on swiftly, pretty much those are the key metrics in short. Now, I just want to give you a quick case study briefly on this, and to understand exactly, there's nearly 1,200 new connections were made by Bianca on this case, and I think it was Charles, can't remember, from Celia Attitude, 2,000 new connections in 15 days. What does that mean? He had a 40% reply rate directly within the platform. Now, this is not just a direct pitch, but actually the fact that you can scale is a tactic in itself, right? And so this becomes hugely important about what you really can do. So this is a great example of the lucrativeness that LinkedIn can provide whilst using automation the right way, right? I'm sure many of you have heard of different tools, DuckSoup or Linked Helper or whatnot, out in the marketplace. They are not secure. So, and I'll explain that in a second thereafter. So this is very important part of the puzzle here. So kind of moving on, one of the key things why it's important, if you've got no budgets on expensive ads, you've got to use LinkedIn automation, right? If you're worried about the perception of cold calling and cold email and the low conversions, you need to try and use LinkedIn automation. Then, of course, it's about your time. If you're a sales professional or even a company, you don't have all the time to go and research each specific prospects and get the data and put it all together. It becomes cumbersome. It's about saving your time and energy so you can focus on actually the positive leads, somebody that's interested in your solution. So why shouldn't you be able to automate stuff that you would do manually anyway? So it's very important that you can do high personalization at scale that is GDPR compliant. So this becomes hugely key. So your time is focused on actually nurturing relationships that have shown some form of interest in the solution that you're selling. So I think without further ado, I think I have that. So there's a couple other things that I want to go into because I'm just conscious of time, is prospecting etiquette. What I realize is that it's important to be mindful that, well, what was it? I think it was 10 million people that have coronavirus. Like, the amount of people out there are going to be a little bit skeptical about why are you pitching to them at times of turbulence, of uncertainty. Always, to anybody that, yes, they're still continuing business, but it's always be mindful, and this is the way I do it at least, and I found that it's respectful because I actually came across somebody that had COVID, that their family, they lost. So it's always being mindful about how you approach prospects, and even with small things like that could make the biggest difference. And I just want to add here the kind of things that we do on LinkedIn. I came across, you probably noticed that you lead the function at Company X. As this uncertainty has clouded businesses, I wanted to show you why it would be relevant for me to contact based on value proposition, benefits 1, 2, and why, right? You go directly, so why are you pitching to me, basically, right? So these are kind of the small things to consider. I'm sure many of you are already well aware. And the same thing here, I've ended it with, look, I totally understand if it's not the right time, happy to help any other way, right? So it's important that you keep these factors in your prospecting as a form of respect, and especially in the social context. Now, I just want to discuss a few other things that matters before I finally give it to Morgan, that's kindly waiting, is providing more value, right? You'll find yourself that people have to, it's about more value and to be able to allow more features on the current structure. Provide a level of form of discount that could help both whatever you're offering, whether it's longer trials or some form of discount, will help a lot, especially to enforce freeze options across the to ensure business continuity. Post-COVID helps a lot as well. And of course, especially being on LinkedIn, as you look to prospect and automate, and I will show you the tool just after, towards the end as well, so you guys can see. But it's important that you provide some form of support, build that rapport and show them what the value looks like. to the client. So that's me, part of it. I will let Morgan kind of take charge a bit here as well, and then we can take it from there.
Awesome. Look at those cute little guys, huh? They're pretty cool. A wise person once told me, if you want to learn something new, read an old book. And something I've learned through my study of sales and even marketing, the principles never change. The strategies sometimes change. The tactics change often. And since I've been in sales, whether it was, in high school, whether it was in college, even post-college now, I've always had this fascination with the psychology of what makes someone say yes. And to fulfill that fascination, to learn more, to get better at getting people to say yes, I've studied copywriters, right? These are people who are, writing to sell, right? Your high school English teacher would, go crazy if you showed her this type of writing, because the traditional writing that we learn in school is not the same type of writing that's used to sell, that companies use to sell their products and services, whether this is over the phone, whether it is on cold email, right? Whether it is, TV ads, the formula is similar, right? So there is one of the greatest copywriters of all time. His name is Gary Halbert. He would always ask his students this question in his seminars, right? He'd say, if you and I both owned a hot dog stand and we were in a contest to see who could sell the most hot dogs, what advantages would you most like to have on your side to help you win? Right? So let me know in the chat. What would you guys want? If we were competing, let's say we were across the street and we were competing for customers, what would you need to win? Location. Okay, that's a good one, George. Location. You can have anything you want. This is, wherever the business is, it could be location, higher quality dogs, right? Higher quality product. I see that one. Cost. Okay. That's important. What if I told you that you could have every single advantage you have asked for? So not just one, but anything you want. I only want one advantage and I'll beat you every single time. Anyone else? Freshly made, free drink. Love that. Ketchup is free. Everybody likes ketchup, almost everybody. Okay, cool. But the cost, ROI, it's important to me. Okay. The answer is, someone said not much of a hot dog fan. Okay. The answer is a starving crowd. Okay. No matter what you're selling, right? The right audience, the right group of prospects, your offer doesn't have to be incredible as long as you're directing it towards the right people. And it's so important when it comes to cold outreach, whether you're calling somebody, whether you're on LinkedIn, whether you are on cold email, whatever you're doing, the right list of people who are going to respond well to your offer will be more important than that audience will be more important than the offer, will be more important than, whatever you write in your copy. That is the most important thing. So a lot of times, cold outreach campaigns can be lost or won before they even start, just with the group of prospects you're going after. I mean, think of it. I forgot where I heard this, but it's like, how do you win a poker game, right? You play with people who aren't as good as you, right? It's about the audience that you are selling to, right? It's about the prospects that you're talking to. That's that first step. So you've got to look for these buying signals. And with great tools like LinkedIn and other third-party tools that are out there now, in just the web in itself, you can find these buying signals that people leave clues on when they are more susceptible to your offer. So I'll go over a few, but let me know in the chat what you think like good buying signals are. I'll give you a few just to get you started. But these could be people who have bought from you or your competitors before, right? Maybe looking at the testimonial section of your competitor's website, right? People who have fallen out of your pipeline. You've been talking before. Everybody, has had those people who they were interested and then they kind of like fall off. Anyone else? Let me know in the chat what you think. buying triggers, finding a starving crowd, right? People who are already buying a similar product, people who are buying a complementary product, right, that yours could go alongside. A good one for anyone who's in any sort of lead generation, marketing type has a marketing type of offer or company that they sell for. Job postings, right? Find job postings on Indeed, Monster, ZipRecruiter, wherever, or even freelance websites like Upwork, Craigslist, like where people are actively looking for someone to fulfill that need, right? This could be funding and investment when startups have received funding, or preferably before they receive funding, right? Getting into that conversation. On LinkedIn Sales Navigator, you can see company headcount, company revenue growth, anything in the news. If these are new hires, especially senior leadership, right? No senior leader is hired unless they're there to fix a problem. So that could be a good opportunity to get someone's attention, right? So picking that right market is extremely important. So let's say we craft that good list of buyers that are going to be more susceptible to purchasing our offer. What do we say once we get in front of them, right? And every time I sit down to write an email, or if I've written a cold call script before, any sort of sales communication, I always come back to this formula. This formula is your best friend, and it's been around forever, for decades, right? AIDA, AIDA. This is what it takes to get that agreement. And if you're doing cold outreach, that agreement is to get someone to say yes to, getting someone to engage with you first, and then to say yes to meeting with you, or just getting them to take that first step, right? So attention, use something to grab their attention. The most powerful form of attention grabbing, copy that you can write, that I always lean on and always fall back on, is curiosity, right? Getting someone's curiosity going is the most powerful way to get their attention, right? And your job when you're writing copy, or whenever you start a sales message, is to get someone to the next line, get them to keep reading, and eventually get them to take action. So getting someone's attention with curiosity and also relevance, right? This goes back to what I was talking about before, which is finding that right group of buyers, right? If you can come in at the right time, if you can come in with something relevant and stroke their curiosity, you have a better chance at getting their attention. Interests. Can you tell a story? Can you give facts and figures that support, what you mentioned in that, like, attention grabber, or that kind of tie into your offer, right? Stories sell really, really well over facts and figures. It's so powerful to tell stories to sell. The next is desire. Like, once you get them interested and get their wheels turning, then you move into desire, right? You can do that through the results of a case study. You can do that through talking about benefits, the transformation, the after of the before and after, right? Doing this in a medium is there's an art to it, right? Because you want to keep, emails or text-based sales communication brief, but you also want to get your point across. But getting them to now make what you're talking about more tangible is what you're trying to do in that desire piece. And then just take action, right? You can write the greatest piece of sales communication, but if you don't tell someone what to do next, your results will decrease drastically, right? Has anyone ever heard of AIDA? Just let me know in the chat if you've heard of that before. Yep. Okay. With a few. George, heard it before. Steven, Jay. Cool. Awesome. Sam. Okay. A lot of people heard this before. Okay. Great. Awesome. Tony, first time, but good. Cool. And here I just popped out an example just to give you some context around it. I'll tell you right now, it's going to take several times to get someone's attention. So it's not really all about the one email you send and get a response. It's about the sequence of emails that you put together, which I'll kind of go into next. But this is to give some context. This is a simple example from Yesware, right? Someone in this attention piece immediately they, found something relevant. I saw you were looking at Yesware via Twitter. My colleague and I have had great success teaming up with social selling experts like yourself, right? Interests, you're starting to tell a story right there, leaving some form of open loop there. Desire, a few notable experts we partnered up with include Trish Bertuzzi, Lori Richardson, and Jim Keenan and Craig Rosenberg, right? You are, this is a form of social proof. Hey, I've worked with people who are of your caliber, right? Getting them more interested in action. I'd love to get your feedback on Yesware's product and explore how we could work together to share Yesware with your clients. Would you have some time next week to connect? The only thing I would kind of add, I would write this a little bit differently, but the biggest thing would be I never ask for anyone's time in the first email that I send them. I always try to get them to engage with me first, right? Going from stranger to 30 minutes is a big leap for most people. It will work, but not as well as if you just get them to respond first. Get them into a conversation first. Get them to engage with you. Get them to make that first little investment. And then once you've gone back and forth over email, it could just take one more. Then you go into, the kind of a low risk or no risk offer to get some of their time and take a value-based approach, but to get them on the phone if that's the next step in your sales process. So I actually have a case study where I go into detail on all of this. It's really my my process that I use for mid-market accounts, mostly to get people on the phone with me or to sell. It uses some of the copywriting fundamentals that I talked about today, as well as I leverage technology, email sending software to send out email sequences. Just to kind of give you an idea, most people will send out maybe 1 or 2 emails. I send out at least 8 over a period of 2 months, reducing frequency as I move along. To kind of like stretch it out. But if anyone wants the case study where I document kind of what my thought process is and how I put together, as well as the results that came from it, the number of people emailed, the number of emails that bounced, the number of replies, right? The sales that I made. And this was all, I was selling something where it was all via email. I wasn't getting people on the sales calls, as well as the email templates that I use that you can take, swipe, and edit with your own information. By all means, do it. I never work from blank slate, so I always have something I'm working off of. But feel free to go to morgandwilliams.com/crowd to grab that case study and templates. If you're having any issues getting those templates or downloading the case study, please just shoot me an email. Just put Morgan onto the left there, morgan@morgandwilliams.com. Shoot me an email and I'll send it over to you.
Awesome. Great. Thanks for that, Morgan. One thing I'm going to really reiterate, one point is 100% it's about the engagement. Actually, because one thing we've realized across our 3,000 different companies that we work for, it's about the engagement process, right? So I couldn't agree more right there. If once you've got them there, they've invested that time, they will actually hear out what you have to say, right? So I 100% agree. So I just want to go towards more tips. My background's on the tech side, the tools, the strategy, and one thing is about, okay, great. If, as Morgan, you formulated your copy, you formulated your strategy, what can you do to actually increase your ratio, increase your numbers, and your pipeline, right? Your interest. It's about leveraging the tools, the right tools. And for me, yes, GrowthLead came in here showing you a solution, but it's a no-brainer when it comes to the numbers. And how can you actually leverage platforms like this to be able to multi-touch people in different channels to increase that engagement rate per person, but across different channels? So you can do these different hacks directly on Zapier. So using GrowthLead and Zapier, I'm going to show you actually directly, because I know we have about 8 minutes before the Q&A. I want to quickly show you a specific hack that we've used on Zapier, which is here somewhere. Let's go here. So what we've done is directly within, something like GrowthLead, that you can create specific campaigns. What you can do beyond that is, once you've had a list of contacts directly that you have been automated on LinkedIn through invitation process, you export that data and you get directly all their emails. And what you do is then you put them into a sequence using just Zapier here, for example, and you can actually create a multi-step approach when you create a Zap. So what I mean by that is, if you're using something like Mailshake or other tools like this directly, for example, maybe it's the other way around that you want to approach it, whatever method you want to do, use Zapier to create that specific, let's say it's when someone opens that. What you can do is, if you're using, Morgan's 8-step copywriting, and you want to say, actually, do you want nobody's responded or somebody's responded, then you can actually go directly into the sequence and throw them into like tools like GrowthLead or whatever else you want to use directly on here, to be able to then send invitations automatically. So you have a full multi-step approach to your prospecting. And that becomes very powerful, because those lead to the 10 times results that we're given based on the data and all the customers that we use. So to allow these specific techniques, you guys will be able to really leverage. So on that note, I just want to ask, and I love the whole question asking, especially on here, how many people actually using LinkedIn for prospecting or any automation on LinkedIn directly? Good lads. There we go. There's quite a few. Yeah, good. Awesome. Okay. Perfect. All right. So there's a few that use it and none don't. Now, and you're probably wondering, there's a lot of objections that come to this. Why should I do it? It's unethical, or why it's unconventional. Why should it be automated? And maybe it's less personalized. But the powerful thing, it is really about the fact that you can actually do automation on the cloud that is completely and utterly secure. Even something like tools like us and GrowthLead, we have some 3,000 plus users with 0% ban rate, simply because we have limits. You can do what a human can do already, right? You don't abuse it, you stick to the limits that you can. So now the most important thing is about creating these hacks that can leverage the contact directly, including being able to actually, because one of the problems that you find, even the people that are using automation, is to actually manage your leads. It's like, how can you able to, I guess my internet's slow here. There we go. So in short, even being able to manage leads directly becomes incredibly important. So to be able to have a direct inbox where you can manage all your leads directly, because one of the biggest problems about LinkedIn is the fact that you can actually, you can't manage your leads, you get overwhelmed. The fact that you can actually go direct here on LinkedIn and manage all the positive replies, because you can actually filter through the AI tool that we have on positive responses and focus on that. As long as you've got a sequence that, you follow the ADA process that Morgan mentioned, and you put them into a system, both, Mailshake directly, and put them in then onto GrowthLead, you have the ultimate platform for lead generation. Really, it's that simple. And the fact is, so these systems are integral part of it, rather than just me pitching, but it's actually the tool itself that leads to the success of your pipeline. And without the right tools, you're going to be wasting a lot of energy, a lot of time. So just going back here and stressing why you want to do that is because you can actually, because if you're targeting that 70, let's say you are 1,000 people, whether it's email or LinkedIn contacts, only 30 to 40% are going to accept. You forget that the other 40%, you're just burnt. You're burning through your leads without really maximizing every single contact, but through another channel. So you're maximizing the other 30% of the data for you to leverage it. And of course, we've seen that hugely improvement when you do an email and then LinkedIn, even at the same time, because they may not see you in email, but then if you go to LinkedIn and you're connecting with that individual at the same time, you can actually improve your chances of engagement, because you've put yourself in front of their attention twice. It's like McDonald's being able to advertise both on a bus and on a TV, right? You see it twice, and the buyer intent, the buyer interest would increase substantially. So it's this kind of psychology that has an impact, including another hack, by the way, because if anybody that connects, you can actually have the personal emails, right? That's given to them. That's consentfully given to you as a connection. You can leverage all that data by placing custom audience ads against that specific persona. So all these things trickle down to, especially if you're working large deals, right? High ticket items, you've got to make sure that you target them at different places, not just transactional. So just quickly, then of course we have open emails. This is just a huge one. For you guys that don't know, if you go to a profile in Sales Navigator, you can send free emails directly. And even one of the things, so you can, Sales Navigator has a 60 per month limit, but you can bypass this, something called open. So all the contacts that have premium accounts, you've got to have a Sales Navigator. You can message Danielle here, King, directly, for example, without, pretty much up to 800. Of course, if you want to spend 800, send 800 in a given month and you have the time, by all means do it. Even with us in our system and GrowthLead, we've automated that. So you can send 800 emails per month, which is crazy scale, especially if you've got your audience and you're targeted, it becomes incredibly useful. So do check it out after this webinar. Go into your Sales Navigator if you guys have it. If you don't, by all means, get Sales Navigator. It's important that you understand segmentation, as even Morgan mentioned about company headcount, the company size, obviously the same thing, but specific titles become important. So this is a huge hack that you gotta, because actually I get more responses with this than I do with just connections, because it's direct. It's the closest thing to a cold email, because you can send a larger pitch and you can dive in straight. As an email. So at least you set the expectations. You kind of avoiding beating around the bush with connections. So without that, I think that's pretty much on my end that I wanted to share with you guys. And of course, if you have questions, by the way, please, in about a couple of minutes, you'll move on. So I just want to get on to a safety. I know a few people that do automation are using it differently, are concerned. There are these are kind of the limitations in LinkedIn automation that you really got to make sure you have in mind. So I'll leave this here. I don't want to spend too much time, but it's important to be able to do it securely and safely so you can, elongate your account for the long term. So these are just something I leave here. So you guys can either take a screenshot or of course, Laura will share after.
This is one that I really wanted to talk to you, if you don't mind. Mm-hmm. I think not enough can be said about this, because there are a lot of companies out there that talk about LinkedIn prospecting and automation, and you just have to be so careful, and I think that's why I've been so impressed with GrowthLead, is because they have these safety limits in place, and protecting your LinkedIn account is going to be so important. Making sure that, LinkedIn only gets more and more strenuous in terms of its developer license, in terms of, what it allows, its technology, its AI to find out, who's doing what when. And so you just want to stay on the safe side of that always. And also that slow and steady approach means also, because we've tried a whole bunch of stuff in the past, and that slow, steady approach is the way that you actually can be very personable with people. Like you can reply in real time. You can make sure every lead is nurtured properly. So, I think that's an important slide for me, for sure.
100%. It's really underrated. Anyone would want to spend, $5-10 on some scrappy tool on a Chrome extension and go for it. But you don't realize the powerful value. The return on investment is unquestionable. It's a no-brainer. Spending $50 to $100 on a tool like this, and based on your LTV of a customer that you acquire, it's unquestionable, right? That's why these tools are important. But it's about actually the safety side, because that's the real risk. Just like a domain is for cold email, it's the same thing here. And you got to make sure you have the right warm-up process. If you're doing any automation, you set the limits and you're good. And we have a proven method, because we have we're pretty much near 0% ban rate across all the 3,000 plus companies that use our platform. So that's one thing that I'm very strongly can guarantee, especially if you're considering, GrowthLead or even other automation tools, is make sure that they at least have this as well. It's very important. So without that, I know we're already kind of gone. We might have 10 minutes. So I want to get to two things. We've teamed up naturally with CommissionCrowd. directly, and we're offering to everybody on this platform that you want to, test drive for a month or to however long, 20% off all our plans. And our plans start from as little as $70 to $150, depending on what features you want. So it's really a no-brainer if you want to reach 2,000 people with high personalization. I don't want to turn this into much of a pitch fest, but tools like this are an incredible part of your success, really. So in short, if you're not using any form of automation on LinkedIn, for whatever reason, you should be, because the scalability ratio really has a huge impact. And that's why 3,000 companies plus are using us directly and securely as well. So the link's there, and I'm sure Laura will share after the course so you guys can have access. Use the bit.ly link there, the commission 20, and you get it as well.
Nick, can you talk a little bit about your support for those who aren't sure about how to set this up, or if that's terrifying in any way? You kind of went into Zapier, and these are all kind of really advanced tools, and so I just want to make sure that people know that you're there to help.
Absolutely. Whether you're in Australia, US, or UK, we're established companies, so we have all the support. So you guys make sure that you can get onboarded correctly, understand how to use the tool, and also you have all the guidance available in order to do it properly, right? We generally, we even have customer success managers to be able to onboard you, to understand how to use it. So in regards to that, Laura, perfect, reasoning behind it. And I think, so some of the complexity, really, there are even a lot of help articles that I've written that, if you guys want to engage, I'm more than happy to, get involved and give you access to all the tools and resources in order how to do all these great hacks.
Yeah, I love that. And I think the thing that I really want to say is that, once you get it set up, that's the hard, you have to invest a few hours to get it set up and running on your behalf. But after that, it really is just kind of it just plays on its own. So yeah, it's been incredibly valuable to us for sure.
Great. No, I'm glad. And in short, as I showed you, just, you'll see the amount of kind of the statistics that you have. And for you guys, so that's the coupon code. Give it a try. It's a month. So if you're spending $80 on something for a month, you will see ROI exponentially. Really, and there is no commitments. Give it a try, and then you let the results talk instead of me, because LinkedIn already is a platform. So the key thing that you saw here is to automate it further, to scale it. If your product's in a B2B space, of course, right? If you're selling ashtrays, I suppose your business wouldn't be the right platform for you. So without further ado, of course, we're a growing startup ourselves in GrowthLead. We've had tremendous amount of features and huge growth opportunities. And of course, being on CommissionCrowd, and you guys, as whether you're a company or sales agents, we are always looking, for those that are looking for opportunities and consider it, are thinking what to do next. For whatever reason, we are open to people. So please do apply using the bit.ly, bit.ly/GrowthLead, and effectively, you can join us. So I just want to mention that as well. And of course, for anybody that's looking for opportunities out there, maybe it's made redundant or considering new avenues in software solutions, then I'm here to speak. So just apply, and then I'll get back to you right away. And of course, you see our benefits there with helping with support and training and so forth. So that's pretty much on my end. If you have any other questions, of course, you can always reach out to me at any point after as well.
Great. So we can go ahead and take some questions now. And I think that a lot of you will probably have questions. So let's dive in. I think we've got 5 just sitting right in the Q&A. Can you guys see that?
Yeah, I saw it. I think there was a first guy, first come, first serve that we mentioned earlier, who had a question that was, excuse me, just passing the hot dogs questions. Someone said, I think it was Joe Robinson. Joe, you said, can I ask why the buyers would think less of you with a cold call? I'm not a cold calling expert, I'll be honest, but my own intuition, personal thought when I've done it, it depends on different regions. It's that whole perception, especially in Europe, it's frowned upon. No one really likes it. I don't like receiving cold calls. For example, even as a business owner, I get unless I've attended a webinar, for example, or X, Y, and Z, then I could possibly follow up with calls. Otherwise, I personally don't. And if someone is reaching out, that just means it's some form of sign of desperation, if I'm honest. I mean, that's my personal view. I'm sure Morgan and Laura would have their own view, but that's my take on it.
I love cold calling.
Yeah, no, I have no problem with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a completely different view on it too. I think I had to do it very early in my career, doing like 80 to 100 cold calls a day for a company, and it completely like shortened my learning curve when it comes to sales. I think it's a true like outbound sales test. I will say that people don't like bad cold calls, but a good one at the right time, they love it. You know, value laden, targeted, right? Don't waste people's time. People like it as much as you can like a sales message.
Yeah, and Morgan had as a group on the back of that link, if you wanted to click it and get his case study, he's also got a group there that you can join. And last night, or recently anyway, he posted sort of the do's and don'ts of cold calling generally. And so it's definitely a post to check out if you've ever, especially challenge yourself if you've ever thought about, you know, I hate cold calling. You know, I think you're probably not doing it in a way that's beneficial for you or the prospect. So, okay. So Morgan, Sarah has a question about your case study. I think is it what geographic market was that? Was that in U.S. specifically?
That was in the U.S. U.S.
Okay. And then Will is saying one of the biggest challenges we've had is syncing email campaigns with LinkedIn. When someone says yes or no in one channel, how are they synced across channels and don't annoy the prospects? Can you talk to that, Nick? Or?
Sure. It depends what tools you use, to be honest, and whether they have the feature of removing someone. So our workflow, for example, has been with a company called Reply. So Reply has something said, if a sequence has been finished and equals no reply, you can then directly send them a LinkedIn request or a sequence from a tool like GrowthLead, because we have that Zapier integration, right? So it becomes really powerful that way. So it is a case-by-case basis. Actually, in the next month or two, we are building email on top of our platform. And then to be able to do that natively, that is the only way that we source the opportunity. Right now, it's a workaround, as I mentioned, through Zapier. So that's your best way. It's about the tool. So if the tool doesn't have that trigger where you can remove a contact, for example, not all tools, depending on what tools you use. So you have to be mindful about what the capabilities on Zapier is on there to be able to do that. So yeah, that's...
Your software automatically stops the drip when somebody replies.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So, so Will, I understand that challenge for sure, but certainly with this tool in particular, that won't be a challenge. When somebody replies, it just drops, its job is done, it's out.
Yeah. Correct. I think 100% that's not, especially if you're just doing just LinkedIn, yes, 100%. But for email and trying to sync the two together, right now, there's only a workaround through Zapier. Otherwise, it's trivial. So good question.
Let's see. Would GrowthLead be a good tool for B2B service companies, software services, to be clear? Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's literally probably the highest one that you really want to use it for, in the top kind of 10%.
And Gao is asking, if it's automated, will LinkedIn lock up my account? And I'm not sure if I already answered that, but this is the great thing about this software in particular. I mean, I'm sure others have their own limits, but what I really like is that they're very conservative with the limits, and you can also be more conservative with the limits. And I would encourage you to do that. I mean, this is a slow and steady approach. It's not about this is not spamming people. This is not like 5,000 people today. You know, this is really about, you know, a slow and steady approach. And if you take that, then you're not going to have that problem. Sales activities need to be integrated for digital and yes, print. Good. Anybody have any other questions today? I hope I didn't miss any. If I did, please let me know. Okay. Well, I hope that that was, any last words from anybody else? No? Okay. Well, I hope that was informative for you. I certainly have found it to be. You know, we have to be very conscientious in this time to be reaching out to people in the right way. Oh, sorry, what?
I'm sorry, Laura. I think it was Jay. We had one last question before we.
Oh, great. Good.
I think it says, excuse me, a multi-client prospect, and how could this work? The platform. You represent a few companies. Understand that the campaigns could be I see. I think it's to manage multiple clients, whatever you have. So if you are, let's say sales professionals having, you can actually create multiple accounts onto one roof and manage all of them. So even if you have reps, maybe sales reps or multiple people in your company, you can manage them all under one roof securely by switching to specific IPs. So yes, you can very easily. And that's the powerful thing about being cloud and secure at the same time.
There's also one here, a couple from Laura Miller. It says, we often see posts on LinkedIn with people's naming and shaming. Why do people invite you, then pitch straight away? It's so annoying, etc. How can we protect ourselves from that? And then how do we get through to people who are saturated with these messages on a daily basis? So yeah, I'll take that first. So I don't ever pitch on LinkedIn. I try to, if I'm using LinkedIn, I try to start a conversation, right? Mm-hmm. So asking engaging questions, you know, if it's valuable outreach and not just a straight pitch, you won't get that. So like make it relevant, add some value and try to engage them into a conversation. And then how do we get through to people who are saturated with these messages on a daily basis? I would say it's never one tactic or one channel. Using multiple channels works really well. So like if you're having trouble with cold calls, you can warm people up over email or LinkedIn and then give them a cold call. Then you have some context. One of the best ways I've gotten people off of email onto the phone for a meeting is as soon as they email me back, I don't even respond to the email. I'll just call them immediately if the phone number's in the signature. Hey, they know me. They just responded. Boom, we have a phone call. Also, so you know, using what's that? Using LinkedIn to as part of the piece, or as a piece to the puzzle, and then you know, using multiple channels to start a conversation. Also, a big one is texting. Right. Texting is huge. I get such great responses from texting people. Since it can be a little bit invasive, I only text someone. My rule is that I only text someone if their phone number's publicly available. So if they respond to my email and have a number there, their mobile number, right? Sometimes I'll use that if they've engaged me in a conversation, but never cold. I'll never cold text someone. But yeah.
From an international perspective, WhatsApp is always really great as well. You know, so if you've got WhatsApp, I often will add prospects to WhatsApp and just say, hey, you know, I'm here. If you've got any extra questions, you know, it's just kind of opening the line of communication further, you know, because I love texting. Don't email me. I love to text. WhatsApp me. You know, I don't want to email anymore.
I totally. I just wanted to add to that. Look, 100%. You should not just always pitch depending on your approach and your value. For example, always start with a question. Just a question. Hey, I'd love to. You know, great to connect. For example, look, how have you finding X at Y? For example, and the only time that I would straight pitch in LinkedIn, and it says straight pitch with, and it's inmails. I've never had a negative experience myself or other users if it's inmail because of the etiquette that inmails was actually used for this reason. So if you want to go straight pitch, try inmails if you want to do that. But connections approach is becoming about relationship, questions, engagement. So I just wanted to add that.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much for everybody today. I think we covered everything. If you've got any more questions, it's always support@CommissionCrowd.com. We're always happy to help. We're going to send this out and make sure you've got all the links that you need. And I really want to thank all of you for participating today, and also Morgan and Nick for your time and attention. It's just been really great to work with you both, and I hope that you will check out their stuff. Okay. Bye for now.
Great. Thank you, Nora. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.